Good afternoon, Professor Stiles. Today I'm going to talk about my interview analysis and my findings with this assignment. So the first thing I want to talk about are the benefits of the survey because, I thought the activity was very helpful for me in this class, but I think it's also a tool that I will use in my future classroom. So because I like the idea of surveying my students within the first day of class or within the first week of class, so I can gauge their likes and preferences and make suggestions. And I would use questions that are similar to the interview questions that you gave us. So, for example, Hunter, one of the students that I used in this interview process, he's a 7th grader. And he said his favorite book is Hatchet and that he likes action books. So perhaps I may suggest that he read more Gary Paulsen books or maybe start another thriller series like The Ender's Game. So again, I really like the survey and I would definitely use it in my future classroom in order to help students pick out books and make suggestions and get them more engaged in reading. So another thing that I noticed in this assignment is that a lot of the answers that my students were giving reflected some of the theories and journal articles that we read. So Jessica, the 12th grade student who is 18, she said that it really reflected the idea that our textbook talks about, in that adventure, mystery, and humor provide young adults with an escape from our everyday lives. And furthermore, science fiction, fantasy, and horror books allow readers to enter imaginative worlds that are full of endless possibilities. So I really thought this was reflected in Jessica's answers. So, for example, she says, in my opinion, reading gives us a place to go when we have to stay where we are. She says, I have reread books because I can't get enough of the world that each book brings me into. I love to read because it gives me a place to go when I have to stay where I am. I also love it. I love how it allows me to use my imagination. So here her statements really reflect the notion that the books offer her escape from her everyday lives because she says it brings me into a new world and it gives me a place to go. So I thought that her statements really reflect our textbook's theory on different genres, giving students a break from their everyday lives. So another thing that I noticed, a connection to our textbook, is that the survival and adventure genre appeals to reluctant readers, and especially boys. So Hunter claimed that he doesn't like to read, but his favorite book is Gary Paulsen's Hatchet, and he likes to read or watch movies with action. So, Hatchet is about survival, and his movie preferences and book preferences tend to lean towards more action, so I thought that this really reflected what our textbook said about reluctant readers. So another interesting finding here, both of the younger students, Kirsten and Hunter, both 7th graders, they said that being a good reader depends on how fast you can read. So in their interview questions, do you consider yourself a good reader? Why or why not? Hunter says, no, I don't think I'm a good reader because I'm slow. And Kirsten said, I'm sort of a good reader. If it's interesting, I read faster. So here she's implying that good readers read fast. And in another interview question, what does someone have to do in order to be a good reader? Kirsten says, read a certain amount of books in a certain amount of time. And then in the final question that I provide here, do you like to read? Why or why not? That was my additional question for the students. Hunter says, no, because I'm bad at it and it takes a long time. So here they're really focusing on their definition of a good reader, and it's reflected again and again in that being a good reader depends on how fast you are at reading. So I thought that was very interesting because it really contradicts Jessica's theory of being a good reader. So Jessica said that being a good reader really depends upon how they can cope with text complexity. So in an interview question, what does someone have to do in order to be a good reader? Jessica says, I believe that when they come to a word that they don't know, they should be able to use the context around it and figure out its meaning. And in another interview question, who is the best reader you know? What makes him or her a good reader? Jessica says, my sister Brienne. She is a good reader because she reads challenging books well. So here I thought she really focused on the qualitative measure of text complexity to determine, her definition of a good reader. So she thinks that good readers can define complex words and language through using their reading skills and those hints that the books actually give you. So I thought that was very interesting to see how younger students perceive a good reader and how somebody like Jessica, who likes to read, who reads a lot, perceives a good reader. Okay, and another thing that I found interesting was that even if a student doesn't like to read, for example, Hunter, they can still identify with a book and they may even reread certain books that they like. So, in the interview question, have you ever reread a book? And if so, which one and why? Hunter says, yes, I have, and it was Hatchet. And Kirsten says that yes, she has reread a book and that it was Dolphin Tale. And Jessica says that I have reread pretty much like every book I've ever read, so I'm not going to list them because that's a lot of books. So even though these students perceive reading differently, and some may think that they are bad readers, some think that they are good readers and like to read and don't like to read, they still can identify with a certain book, and it's all about students finding what motivates them as a reader. So Kirsten likes books about animals. Hunter likes books that are about action and survival. And Jessica likes romance, comedy, and mythology books. So, these students and future students really just need to find their niche and figure out which books that relate to them and their reading interests. So I thought that was very interesting. Here's my works cited page. I cited the textbook and 2 of the journal articles, and I talked about how they related to the interview answers that I got. So I'll put this up on Moodle with my Word document with the full answers. So if you need anything else, just let me know, and thanks for watching.